my pouch. I threw it and thumped the wizard right on the head, and the demon grabbed the wizard by the foot and he dragged him down into the depths of the abyss.
But first, demon, thank you. You forgot that part.
Oh, did I, Zestin? Well, yes, the demon thanked me and he took away the magic ring you'd given me. If it wasn't dark, you could see the outline of the ring burned on my finger.
Sun upping now. Morning soon. I see then.
Tannis!
Oh, good. The elves are here.
Elves? What elves? What is it? What's going on?
Porthios! Tennis, what's happening?
It's Porthios. Gilthana's brother. I take it this is a rescue?
Won't be much of a rescue if we end up dead. I thought the elves were expert marksmen.
Keep low. The arrows are only to cover our escape. This is a strike and run raid. My people aren't capable of attacking a large body directly. We must be ready to run for the woods.
And how do we get out of the cages?
Cannot do everything for you. There are magic users.
I cannot work with all my magic components. Fizban, what are you doing? Keep down, old one. Well, perhaps I can help you know anything.
What in the name of the abyss is going on? Why have we stopped?
We are under attack, Master.
Attack! Get the carts moving! We're under attack! Elves trying to free the prisoners!
The driver and the guard dead. What me do?
I'll get another driver. You stay here. Guard these prisoners with your life. I'll hold you responsible if they escape. My guards! Hobgoblins, to me! Charge north. I must report this to Lord Verminar. You Draconians, guard the prisoners!
Well, that takes care of the hobgoblins. Now all we have to worry about is 50-year-old Draconians. I don't suppose there are hundreds of elves out there.
More like 20.
We've got to get out of this cage. The Draconians won't bother taking us to Pax Tharkas now that the Fewmaster's gone. They'll just butcher us in these cages. Caramon!
Oh, Troy!
Sestin, your axe! Break the lock!
No, I don't know.
Sestin, help free us and you can come with us!
Please, Sestin, please.
It's on his damn cage!
That axe is older than I am. It must date back to the Cataclysm. He couldn't cut through a kinder's brain, let alone that lock.
Hush!
Draconians closing in.
Hurry, Sestin!
Tannis, they're coming.
He chipped it! At this rate, we'll be out in about 3 days.
Kill the prisoners! Divide the spoils!
Fizban, old one, keep under cover.
Get down! You're drawing their fire!
Say there, my boy, have you a bit of bat guano on you? I'm out. No, old one, get down. Oh, pity. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to wing it.
What spell is he casting? Can you understand him, Raceland?
No, take cover.
Raceland, what is it?
A fireball.
Pre-recorded in a second-floor guest room filled with tall ales and taller tales. Join a group of grown men intent on discussing the intricacies of fantasy and science fiction. Tim Gilbert Media presents
Dungeons and Dweebs! I like the battle axe. Got it right to the back of her heart.
Hello, all you Draconians, High Lords, and Goblins. This is the Dungeons and Dweebs podcast, episode 2. I'm your host, Bob, the Grand High Bulba Gulp Fudging, coming to you with part 2 of our review of Dragons of Autumn Twilight. But I'm not alone. Across the table from me, the theocrat of Takesis' spandex jean jeggings, Luke.
2 episodes in, and we're going strong with the nicknames. Waiting about.
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Feeling good. I'm excited to get through this. We spent a long time talking about book 1 of volume 1. But let's get into this, Klob.
Hey, coming back again. This is your aged mage, wizard. No, I'm not. I'm the fighter. Paul, how's it going over there?
It's going good. Still haven't figured out what I'm going to do for plan, but we'll come up with one sooner or later.
Perfect.
Best plans are devised on the spot.
That is how I roll all the time.
Yes.
It's only gotten me in trouble at least twice.
I'd rather be lucky than good any day.
Uh-huh.
But here we are in our third podcast covering Book 2 of Volume 1 of Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Let's just jump into this.
I feel already that I'm getting a little confused. I'm getting it that TSR and Dungeons and Dragons likes things in modules. If Book 1 was written off a module, a Dungeons and Dragons module, here we are in Module 2, right? And hey, reset to 0. We're back at the end of the last tome.
And actually, you know what? I do kind of feel like the splitting of the books is a little arbitrary, but it is because we are actually in Module 2 of the Dragonlance campaign. So I think that's really... We did talk about it a little bit before about how this is so tied to the modules, and I think it's just another example of it.
Again, my statement from the beginning of this is I am not going to hold... Although some blame I will probably hold to Weiss and Hickman, but again, at this point, they are beholden to these modules from the game. And so one of my big beefs last week was that we've got this collection of characters that is now resetting back. Again, they are still directionless. I know it's a D&D thing. I find it kind of poor storytelling. So I'm going to continue with that beef, definitely, into this next book.
And I understand exactly what you're saying with that. But again, like you said, this is a D&D thing. This is your group just learned to work together. We just finally beat one minor bad guy. Now we have to... So what do you do after that? You reset to the next level. Right. So now we're at the beginning of the next level, so we go back to somewhere familiar, and we go back to the bar. You go back to the tavern, because, again, that's where in D&D you get the information from. So I didn't have as much of a problem with that as you did.
And everyone wants to always go home. You know, after a big thing like this, you generally would go, okay, I want to take a little bit of a break. You know, if I can, get a little R&R. It's not, you don't always want to constantly be going.
And this is a DM thing as well.
Yep.
This is where your group has just been beat up. Where can you send them that's safe? Or where do they go that's safe to get more weapons, to heal, to go and do whatever shopping your group needs to do when you're actually playing this as a campaign?
Oh, shopping.
And see, this is where I'm seeing the apologists for the book. I'm going to keep maintaining that if you are a D&D fan, you will be okay with the structure of this because it's just campaign level. But if you're not, I feel like the structure of this book is going to rub you the wrong way, much like it's chafing against me.
Which is fine. That's why there's 4 of us here,
Exactly.
and that's why we do this,
But
is
hey,
for the different opinions.
Where the heck do we jump in? Chapter 1, Book 2, Volume 1, Podcast 3. What is, what are we at? The Night of the Dragons, Chapter 1.
The Night of the Dragons. Yeah, so we're back at the inn. Really, this could be the start of a second book. As I'm looking at this, if TSR wanted to make some money, at the time, we're looking early 80s, a lot of fantasy novels were really short. They were like these 200-page, 180-page little tiny slim paperbacks that really got the same price point as normal size paperback. So I'm looking at this from a marketing standpoint going, boy, if you're writing books based on modules and you want to cash in, this should have been a 6-book manifesto, and this would have been the first 2, right? Why are we going with part 1 and part 2? Because this feels like the beginning of a book.
And I think that's a commercial thing from that time frame in the 80s, is you look at where you're looking at going from the dime store paperback, and you're looking at the 80s was really that time, or the 70s and 80s was really a big time when you're looking at going from that 60s dime store paperback.
Those ace paperbacks like Red Sonja.
Yeah, exactly.
Doc Savage.
And even outside the fantasy and sci-fi area, you're looking at getting into, those Crichton books that are so thick. You're looking at so really this could be 2 books. We slam it together because it looks better on the shelf that way, and it'll hopefully sell more because it's a real novel.
And I hate to keep beating a dead ring wraith, but I feel like this definitely was like but we're gonna do high fantasy here. We're gonna make it a giant tome,
But wait, there's more.
There's more.
And you know what? If they were separate books, Book 2 would be more of a novella. Just a little itty bitty guy up there on your shelf. But we come back, Chapter 1, Book 2, and
Hey, Tikka's scrubbing floors.
Tikka Scrub, I was just gonna bring this up. This is the first time we've had just a bit of story without our giant, massive party since the preface in book 1.
Right.
And we learned that Solace has been attacked. Something bad has happened in Solace.
And now, if I'm going to take off I'm an angry old man hat for a while, there is something very endearing about this.
Yes, give me my hat back.
I really do like this whole, we're returning to Solace. If I have to go with this in a book, I do like this juxtaposition of it was kind of warm and friendly the first time, we're returning to it again, and now things, have gone wrong and things are darker. I like Tikka. I like this whole... I like the visuals that come to mind with this whole inn in a tree. So this is a cool place to be.
I thought you were going to say that you like the visuals that come to mind with Tikka.
Are we talking mind boobs?
We will get to mind.
You know, I'm gonna say it right here. These books, we've talked about how TSR wanted them in the last podcast. To skew towards a younger demographic, and how that Weiss and Hickman even had to fight to keep the level of language that they have in this book. That being said, TSR seemed to be okay with leaving in little hints at overt sexuality in this book.
And there's never a sex scene.
Never.
There's never a sex scene in any of these books, but it's that old like we've talked about privately in the past, but that old aspect of you have the movie and you have, she walks into the room and he walks into the room and his shirt gets taken off and she takes off her boots, and then you just have the close-up of the boot on the floor, and then all of a sudden it's morning and they're wearing the L-shaped sheet.
I was not going to talk about this here. I was going to wait until we got to the next book, because that's where Hickman talks about it when we get to a different scene. But Hickman, we said in the last podcast, comes out, and throughout all of the annotations in the annotated version of the book, he comes out very strongly as being a Mormon. So maybe this is tied to his morality, but he is very strongly against having love scenes in a book, and he calls them boot scenes, which is exactly what you just said.
Exactly.
He says that's what happens in old Hollywood movies, where
as soon as the boots come off, it's morning.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of allusions, although I will say, when we'll get to it, there is definitely some really hot and heavy visuals that they're trying to plant into adolescent minds, I think, towards the end of this.
I definitely agree.
With thighs and things and descriptions.
So anyways...
So any boobs in this are not on the written page. They are only in your mind.
Hence, mind boobs. So Tikka's scrubbing the floor. Speaking of...
Yes.
Never mind. Tikka's scrubbing the floor. We have this great juxtaposition here, this dichotomy between the happy, shiny, lovable Solace that we came to, love, and that our characters love and our characters lived in for so long, to come back into, essentially, this is an occupied city at this point.
Right, and I've been waiting for this to happen. I've been wanting this kind of more stakes, and I like the idea that we're coming back. And this is a book series from Dungeons and Dragons, and it is called Dragonlance. I've been waiting for a Dragonlance. I've been waiting for a lot more dragons. So if there's dragons attacking villages, that's just fine with me.
And I'm right there with you. I have the no stakes situation of book 1, volume 1, book 1, and just all the problems I had with that are almost immediately remedied in book 2 of volume 1, where there's, oh my god, this town is destroyed. Even the Inn of the Last Home, they talk about the kitchen is wrecked and they're having to cook somewhere else.
They talked about how the inn is actually taken from the tree and was put back on the ground because the Draconians couldn't get into the trees very easily.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it was, the entire town has changed completely.
Which at the same time didn't make sense to me either, because Draconians in one scene in book 1,
wings.
They had wings, and some of them could possibly fly and claw, but yet they can't climb upstairs into the Inn of the Last Home.
It's not so much climbing up the stairs to the inn at the beginning of the evening.
Oh my god!
It's trying to get down from the inn at the end of the night.
Well, if they wanted to get these kind of weird, what happens to draconians when they drink and can't get up and downstairs. As we get on in the later books, I mean, they're in flying cities. So, I mean, how did that work?
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Yes. Come on.
That's
Some of
not a
us haven't reached
spoiler.
that.
So,
I'll let it go.
occupied town.
Right.
Our heroes are back. Our heroes are in.
They're almost back.
They're almost back.
Does
And it's
the
almost
stranger show up first, or is he after?
I know that Tikka's working, and all of a sudden the companions all just stride in.
Pretty much.
That's right. No, the stranger gets there first, because I remember thinking, like, oh, is this Tanis? What's going on? But there's a stranger there, the party comes back, there's draconians in there that are being odd and sexually aggressive towards Tikka.
Yeah, and here's the part.
Which, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I'm okay with interspecies dating. I'm perfectly fine with that. However, when it goes from the line of, the creepy dragon people that are lusting after, the buxom barmaid, I don't know how we're supposed to feel. Are we supposed to be okay with the interspecies dating? Are we supposed to look at them going, okay, it's the weird littering soldiers and construction workers going after this poor girl?
I think we're supposed to be just...
Is it even possible, like, biologically, between draconians and humans?
I think we're supposed to be just disgusted by this display of the draconians. I am going to sound like just Mr. Eating a Lemon right here, but again, where for you, Luke, this is instant. The dragons are instantly remedying things for you. As soon as they get into this inn, my problem just continues, because they are just sitting around directionless and literally sitting in a tavern waiting for something to happen.
And I'm okay with this from a sense that they got some vision from some mystical unicorn. Okay, maybe I'm okay with the unicorn. I'm okay with them getting this vision.
But they don't understand it. All revelation has not been given
exactly.
yet.
They go and they get this artifact. They're like, now what? Let's go home, I guess. I'm tired. Two of us died.
Right.
Two of us died. We've been gone for 5 years. We came back to our hometown for all of 10 minutes before we ran away again.
And I do feel like, and this is really kind of extrapolating things that don't necessarily exist there, but maybe, Hickman was responsible for the bulk of this plotting of this book. Maybe this is something to do with his faith, where there's these kind of slow reveals by prophets of different levels of things. I don't know. Which works when you're dealing with, massive time scales. But for this small condensed novel, for me, it's not working out as well. But they are approached by a hooded elf, and I'm thinking Strider. Oh wait, no, it's Gilthanis. Okay.
Strider was a human, first of all.
That is true. But this hooded guy's in the corner. I can almost see him smoking his big long pipe, right? Watching them as some of them are being too mouthy, right? And talking so they know what's going on. And then the group is captured by draconians.
Yes.
And we get yet more characters to our party.
Yeah, so if you had it a little bit twisted in your mind as to who was what, and let me tell you, if you've noticed at the beginning now of our last two podcasts, we've done kind of little theatrical interpretations from the book. It is interesting in coming up with those. There are times where I will be going through pages and pages, and it will be like, I know River Moon Lovewind is here, hasn't said anything for the last 5 pages.
He's very stoic.
So finding something that balances all the characters is really tough. And now to add to it, they're all going to be slammed into this cage, this cart, this draconian prison cart, and
which, for those of you paying attention, is actually a scene we did.
Right, exactly.
Yes, you just heard it a little bit
ago. You just heard it a little bit ago. And there's so many characters here, all talking on top of each other. And if you notice now, in that scene that we did, I think it speaks to my point. We just did what people were saying, right? Their lines. Boy, would there have to be massive rewrites if this were to be made into a movie, because it's who is saying what to whom, what's going on. And add to that, when you're in the book, you are jumping from people's points of view, characters' points of view, what's going on in their head. And for me, a lot of this got really desperate. I feel like once we got to book 2 for myself, when we're in this cart, I'm at some of my lowest points reading this book. Yeah.
In the cart, yes.
Yeah.
Once we get to the point where they end up getting out of the cart, then things start rolling for me. But yes, this entire scene in the cart, it's just, okay, I'm just going to keep reading because I have no idea who is actually saying this.
Right, Gold Moon, Lovejoy, is they're having their love thing again. They keep talking. It drives me nuts.
I would like to say, it came to me just a little bit ago about the changing between characters. It could be used to make it seem more frantic to you. Because when I was reading through it, it could be used to show the confusion of combat. It could be used to show the confusion of we're all trapped. That's immediately what I thought of.
It could
right
be.
now.
It could go back to the the actual playing of Dungeons and Dragons again, where you have 4 guys around the table who keep talking at once. And are you in character? Are you out of character? Is this in game? Is this in IRL? What are we doing here?
Exactly. So, and I can let it go a little bit. There are some times where I got really annoyed with it. But in some cases, especially combat, I didn't mind it because it added to my feeling towards the combat of, okay, something's happening here. Oh, wait, something else is happening over here.
Right. If there is a high point for this part, though, it is the addition of a character on the road to Pax Tharkas that I really enjoy.
An old man with a grudge against trees, Fizban. I gotta say, no, I'm there with you. One of my favorites. So funny.
I do love Fizban, and again, I think we've talked about, because Fizban, right, is the old man that we talked about.
He's the old man at the beginning who's telling stories to children in the inn, but he never gets named at the beginning.
Right. So this is kind of our DM. We referred to him as the last time. This is the guy who's been watching the group.
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
a random thought I had while we were recording.
Right, and definitely I think that is what his character is supposed to have done. Again, I love the fact that we have different views of what this character looks like. And I went back and I'm like, why was I thinking he was Gandalf? And I'll tell you, the same time I ordered Dragons of Autumn Twilight, I also ordered a Forgotten Realms series of books that has a main character who is a wizard, and all of the covers have him on it. He was instantly transplanted into my mind as this robe-wearing, giant pointed hat guy. And that's what I had in my head. So,
which works, and that's understandable. And in, like I said, in this position, for me, it was the little old man. It was the little old man that is constantly like digging through his pockets because he can't figure out what's going on. He's not really crabby, but he's not really happy either. It's kind of this, that weird combination of the dungeon master from the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, and I was thinking about this later too, and the dude from Up.
Wow. That is good.
So either way, he's short. It's just this whole like, I don't have any bad guano. Screw it, fireball.
Right, right. And again, for some people this might be a detraction, but when this thing gets kind of funny and comedic, and he is definitely there to bring levity, I think it's when it's at its best, when you kind of have these comic book-ish kind of bad guys and kind of too many characters. It feels like I'm watching He-Man. It feels like I'm watching He-Man. Like I'm sitting Saturday morning surrounded by He-Man figures, and they're all just in this prison cart with me. Nobody knows who they all are.
Fizban's a relief from trying to remember everybody that is here.
Right.
And everybody that's so serious about everything, and he just comes in and...
And on the other side of that, though, by this point, I remember everybody. I remember who they are.
Right.
And actually, I'm getting attached to them. Maybe I'm getting like some weird Stockholm syndrome, like, you gotta read this book, dude. Like,
I'm getting attached to them because, like I said in the first podcast, is the 3 of us right now, Paul, Luke, and myself, are actually playing a D&D campaign where we're actually playing kind of similar characters to some of these people.
And this just totally goes back to my point as to if you are a D&D person, that is why you are going to like this book, because you see yourself in these characters. And this is exactly what marketing wanted, is that they are going to populate this world with every character you can play in D&D. And so everybody who is a D&Der who's going to read this book has a touchstone for them to use. The glass cannons got Raceland, right? The barbarians got Caramon, right? And so you instantly identify with somebody and feed into it off your own nostalgia or whatever. At least that's my take on it, because it does feel like once the defense comes for a lot of this, it comes from a standpoint of this is just like, it always leads from this is just like playing
Well,
D&D.
TSR, I'm sorry that this book came out probably 30 years too early.
How long did this book come out before you were born?
6 years.
Oh, good
Yeah.
lord.
No, I was going to say 30 because I didn't start playing Dungeons and Dragons until like a year ago. But, so they're in the cart. They escape. The elves come to help, and I'm once they're in the Elven City, man, I feel like I'm reading Lord of the Rings again.
I've got a confession to make. I've never liked the elves from Lord of the Rings. I've always found that stuff to be boring.
Going back to what Claude was saying, I usually play an elf.
I've always loved kind of their nature tree hippie mentality. I've always been attracted to that, but I've always found the stuff.
The douchey, snotty nose in the air, we're better than humans because you people are so young. Always pisses me off.
I find it kind of difficult. I find it difficult to read through, or I at least always find it. It seems like elves are always the breath of air that gets taken in a book. You know, while the rest of the chapters are all shouting at you, grab the swords, do the this, do the that. Then you get to the elven worlds in these fantasy books, and so I was like, and everything's beautiful, and the leaves are all beautiful, and there's, they're the breath of fresh air, which for some people they love that, but I start to get kind of bored.
Well, yeah, and whether it's the elves or it's the Vulcans or it's
I was thinking Vulcan.
Yeah. Whoever is looking down on humanity here, there's always going to be one character who is of that race who is going to have some sort of epiphany about how the emotional humans are really okay, and maybe they've got something there.
And maybe even they're half human.
Yes.
Kind of like Spock.
Come on, authors, what are you doing?
I'm
just realizing this right now.
Yeah,
but the writing at some points has been lazy in this book, and it's been boring, but man, the way they describe this city, the illustration of the spiraling towers.
And see, I got bored there because it's the same as every other elven city you've ever heard of.
I don't care. I am, there's not going to be Lord of the Rings book 4. That's not going to happen. And maybe I'm just looking for that in other places. But I am loving this.
Right.
Until we get into the politics of, well, the elves are going to do this, and I don't care what you humans do.
Yeah.
Until we get into the prequels.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna bring up these discs again. I mean, here we are with the discs, but there's kind of no plan. Again, I feel it's so weak when our protagonists, when up until this point, have pretty much been powerless. They're just being kind of whisked around by the plot threads of this book. And they don't have a direction. They're not pushing. They're not driving for any kind of a goal. Even yet, at this point, stuff is just happening to them, which I feel is so weak. It's so weak for me.
Well, and it's that whole, like you said, it's that plot-driven, that like ex machina idea. It's like, okay, we don't know what to happen. Fireball from the sky. Okay, I guess we go over here.
Yeah.
It is that lazy writing, but I feel we start to roll after the chapter and a half of elven history and politics.
Yeah,
right.
And we're going to add another character in. I'm blanking.
Laurana.
A love interest.
A love interest.
So
we move on.
So Hickman makes a big deal about how everything in Dragonlance he likes to write in threes. Okay, he likes to have a triangle of conflict around a character that balances them out, or other things. This is why.
Isn't there a French term for that?
So he likes to make a toit of problems. So he says that's why there's 3 moons, right? We haven't talked about this, but on Kryn there are 3 moons. There's the regular moon, there's a red moon, and there's a black moon.
Okay,
a dark moon.
You can only see the black moon if you're a black mage.
Yeah, or something like that.
Where was I missed that?
Yeah,
is that a different book?
Yeah, is that later on? Is that
I might be drawing this from some of the others. It all's mushing together, but there are 3 moons.
There are 3 moons
that reflect the colors of the mages. So the conflict with Tanis is supposed to be between his love of 2 women, right?
One who is one who we know at least is kind of the warrior chick
right
to begin with, and the other is at least right now the princess.
Right, and here Laurana. Boy, this is only 84, so I'm feeling she's kind of one of these kind of stock characters. She just seems so over the top melodramatic in love with Tanis.
She's a princess.
Oh,
I
man.
will say once again, Lord of the Rings came into mind. Strider and
Oh yeah.
what I forget
Oh,
the
yeah.
other elf's name.
I'm gonna
That
go
was
other places.
Immediately what I thought.
I'm gonna go to every 70s sword and
Steven
sandal
Tyler's
movie
daughter.
where there is some sheer chiffon wearing princess who's all over the main character for no other reason other than he is just the main character. Now I should come back and say no. They give lots of reasons why Laurana is in love with Tanis, and it all makes sense. And
But
now after all that I've said,
Did you read that history?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
We need to talk
I like
about
this.
that.
I like.
Okay.
I like.
Yeah,
this
no,
part.
it's
Okay.
a little out of place,
It is.
but I didn't mind it.
I didn't mind it. I didn't get to it. But if you actually look at it, I did have to step back at one point and go, okay, that's weird. Because there is, if you read the section, there is this whole thing on how Tanis is half elf because his mother was raped and then she died, and so he was raised pretty much as Lauriana's brother.
Right.
Yes.
And again,
But
going to the
there
demographics of this book, when we find out that full story, which comes in later books, it's brutal. And so you're like, wow, you wanted 12-year-olds to read this? But yeah,
okay.
keep going.
No, yeah, it is a little weird. I will say I had two moments with Tanis where I had these weird incest vibes. They're talking about Kitiara at one point. It's just this little paragraph, and it's in book 1, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but where it talks about how Flint and Tanis adopted Kitiara, Raistlin, and Caramon, and took care of them. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, whoa, is this like some sort of weird you adopt them and then you're dating them thing? I had to go back and read it. And I'm like,
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. That was the other spectrum.
Yeah.
Because Tanis was adopted by Lauriana's family, and so now he's adopted Kitiara, Raistlin, and Caramon.
oh no, that poor
and then
half
it's
elf.
just this
Right,
weird,
right.
oh my
span.
wow.
And then they Hickman in his side notes goes on and on about how there's this big kind of story of Laurana and that, finding her character and going from kind of this, kept princess to finding her strength and power, and by the end of this, I mean, yeah. Again, reading the side notes, I feel this is your first time out. This is your first novel. I think these guys were really invested into their characters. I know from reading the notes that they played as these characters a lot in D&D,
Oh,
right?
okay, in
So,
D&D, okay.
yep. So I think that there's a lot of backstory going on in their minds. They're more connected to these characters than maybe what they bled out onto the page here. But I don't see this awesome arc for Laurana any more than any other kind of
it could have
superhero.
It could have been left
dime
out.
store
The
novel.
whole thing about Tanis and Flint adopting these kids, that could have been left out. They could have just been people that they met. And
Yep.
This whole thing about Tanis and Laurana and him being adopted by Laurana. I mean, I don't know where it goes in the future books.
Right.
They could have just been like neighborhood
Right.
friends when they were in Qualinesty and they were so young that him being half elf didn't matter.
And I think they did that partly to establish the fact too that Tanis and Flint, just simply by race itself, are quite a bit older than everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. And that's covered. That's covered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Again, I'm just going to go back. I think, again, I'll cut them slack, even though I'm harping on it, but that's what we're here to do. But I just feel it's a little amateurish. I mean, we're looking at their first novel out of the gate. I think they're trying to create, boy, I'm going to beat the Ring Wraith again, but they're trying to evoke Tolkien. That's, at this time, that's going to be their go-to. And he did an excellent job of creating this really deep world that felt old and ancient and had all of these, he was a linguist, so he has everything was spot on with what he did. They're going to try to copy this, and this is like the 80s cartoon version of an epic movie.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly. And again, we have these things that they keep trying to jam in here, that TSR keeps trying to jam in here, and you can really feel it
right.
from taking it away from the actual authors who like Luke said, Luke liked all these descriptions of the elven city. And also, what do you do when people come to your city? You have a feast. Right. And guess what? Do you remember what happened at the feast?
I don't. I know that
it's been a while since we've had a song.
Yeah, the songs come. And speaking of how they're jamming stuff in, they talk about druids here. I'm like, so there's druids too? Like they just really quickly, it's just dropped in, like you said, just dropped in. I don't think we ever see this again, to what I'm trying to remember. I don't know if we see druids again, but now there's druids as well. It's not said really, I don't think, what race they belong to or anything, but there's druids. But we get our first hint, and here we are, we're book 2, we're starting to get our first hints of Verminard. There's a discussion, I believe at the dinner, that they discuss Verminard.
And I do want to, I might just cut this out. I just want Klob's audible response when I show him the Elven Hymns music from Dragonlance Module 2.
Oh my god. Oh my, this is a bass piano part that I'm looking at right here for the Elven hymn that Tanis sings at the dinner. Those of you who are able to play piano and able to read music here, we have both our treble clef and our bass clef stabs in here, and you need about 7 fingers on each of the hands to reach these notes.
Wow. Yeah, when the first time I flipped that page, I couldn't see it.
You know,
this makes my disappointment on the fact that Tanis actually starts singing a song so much more.
You know what? I'm going to make it this cool. I promise you, listeners. Well, maybe I shouldn't do this, but in Hickman's side notes, he does say that there was a couple artists they knew, some sort of folk artists that they knew that turned some of these into real songs. I'm gonna find these, and we're gonna play them on the show.
Maybe
you guys need to hear this.
We'll link them on our Facebook page.
Link them on the Facebook page.
And we can have a little discussion in the comments.
Maybe in the next episode or a few down the road. Before we get out of Dragonlance, we'll have to hear what some artists. Maybe we'll do it as a bonus episode at the end, some sort of music and poetry reading episode.
Yes. We'll play the background music and we will all cold read.
Yes. Dragonlance, Summer of Love. When August gets hot, Dragonlance turns up the heat. Anyway, so we talk about Verminard, who again,
super lazy naming.
Because he's vermin. I mean, Hickman in his annotations, I hate to keep jumping to him, but I just like to point him out because he tells us, it's named after vermin. Yeah.
Really?
We know.
Wait. He's named after vermin?
I know.
So wait, you're telling me that Darth Sidious was named after the word insidious.
What?
And Darth Vader was named after the word invader.
And Darth Bane is like a bane to existence?
My mind is blown right now.
Okay.
But I do enjoy, that being said, I do enjoy getting a little bit more backstory here about Verminard. And getting a little bit more information rather than just he's the big baddie in the sky that we have no idea about, but we're supposed to fight him somehow.
Well, this is what are we? We're somewhere around 300 pages into Volume 1.
Yeah.
And Bob, something you were complaining about last time, we have it. We have
the mission.
The bad guy. The mission.
Right. And so here's what the mission kind of is, to my understanding. Fill in where you can. The elves need to escape because, like Tolkien's elves, they're just jettisoning the continent. They're leaving. The bad guys are gathering in Solace. The whole time I was getting this impression that they were invading from the north. But now they're kind of made their home in Solace. Pax Tharkas, where our heroes were being brought to in their cages, is like a slave colony. They're using them as a bunch of elves and humans as slaves, and so now we have this slave liberation that needs to happen. So they need to liberate the slaves, and this will create a diversion, allowing the elves to flee. Well, I hate this right now because it's you're sitting at a dinner table with all these beautiful, wonderful elves, and like Klob said, they are so irritating that they're we need you to risk your lives freeing Pax Tharkas so we can all just leave.
So we can get on our boats and go back to Avalon.
Right.
I don't even think in the slave pits, I don't even think there were elves. It was just, let's go get the humans, have them sacrifice themselves so we can leave.
And our heroes, they know this from what I read. I mean, this is the mission. This is what they talk about, and they're kind of okay with this. to me, there should be some big scene of just yelling it out about how, you think you are so high and mighty, but you're going to leave us all to die. There was no...
You'd think with Tanis in his position, like being caught between the humans and the elves.
What a perfect place to have this. Yeah, Tanis being the focal point.
I'm putting my fingers together about an inch apart now because I'm on the radio and we should be able to do this. I just dated myself because I said radio. Podcast. But there's this tiny little blurb in there where Tanis is ashamed of himself because he's part elven, but it's so lost in everything.
Right.
It's just like, how can my people treat humans this way? The line actually says something to the effect of, "This is why I left in the first place."
Right.
Okay.
But it's lost in there.
Yeah, I feel there's a huge missed opportunity here with Tanis being half elf and half human, that he should be being torn apart, pulled in two directions, or be the fulcrum that's trying to bring them together. Something. I feel this is all lost.
And there's a lot being lost here. I mean, they're definitely, it's like they realize they haven't done any world building with all of a sudden just like this rush of elven politics and this big plan, and there's Lord Verminard and there's humans there, we gotta save them, but the elves want to escape. And even to the point where I forgot why they went to Pax Tharkas.
Okay, can somebody illuminate me on this? Because I read this once, and God help me, I won't read it again for a while. Okay, probably return to it at some point. But this is what I got out of it. Tanis suggests that they split up to keep the discs safe. But then everybody in the group says that they need to stay together even though it's more dangerous. Tanis then says, it's the logical thing to do, so we won't do it.
I actually kind of like that line. Again, that references back to a D&D campaign where you know what?
I'm doing Muppet hands in the air.
How should we storm the castle? Well, we could storm the castle. We could sneak in and raise the porticus, or there's actually somewhere where we could swim through the sewer if everybody holds their breath for long enough time.
Yeah.
No, we swim through the sewer because that sounds the most fun.
Yeah, but here's the thing that makes no sense to me. This is what makes me mad, though. That makes no sense. Like, it's cool. I get the idea of, like, the enemy doesn't know, thinks we're going to do this, so we're going to do the exact opposite. No, they're being stupid, and so are the elves. They have these discs that the magical last unicorn told them to take, right? And they still don't know what these discs are for, so instead of keeping them safe with the elves, or like, hey, let's just back off, we got to find out go to some shaman, there was druids, go ask the druids what these discs are for. No, we are going to go on this cockamamie mission to free the slaves, just the 8 of us, 9 of us, 12 of us, whatever there is, the dirty dozen, and we're taking the discs with us. This is like Luke being like, hey, I got the Death Star plans. I'm going straight to Coruscant, right? Like, and I'm going to go visit the Emperor. Like this makes no sense what they're doing here.
Okay, I understand what you're saying with that. I
defend it.
I do agree with that. Again, I'm the old D&D player. I have to defend. It is the aspect of sending the small party to go. It's the Rogue One aspect.
But they should have gotten rid of the discs. Take the discs, give them to Why are they?
Because if you give them to the elves are leaving. The idea here is we don't want to give them to the elves purely because the elves are kind of being jerks about wanting to, you should leave us the discs. No, we worked for this. These are ours. You're not better than us. We didn't get these for you. We got these for us.
It's just as dangerous to send them with the elves because the elves are going to be attacked by Lord Verminard's forces.
This is true.
They're coming.
And unlike
that's kind of the impending
unlike other elves, these elves do feel even worse than, say, Tolkien elves. I mean, they do feel like they would stab you in the back, these elves. So I do get that, probably not wanting to give in to the elves.
Well, and these
elves do not seem friendly.
No, and there's even more to that, that Laurana aspect. I mean, it really is Tolkien-esque. It really is, okay, I am the head politician elf, and I don't like humans, and you people are stupid. Here's my very pretty daughter who's in love with kind of a dude.
Hey, let's talk about that. So while we're there, this is where some more of that TNA comes in a little bit that they're trying to get those adolescents all fired up with. Laurana comes to talk to Tanis, and it said she does so in a see-through nightgown. So again,
You're an elf.
every woman in this book. I mean, you look at the marketing standpoint. The covers, the art at the time was done by Larry Elmore. Everybody, women especially, are very sexualized, and then they're all talked to as being extremely beautiful, and things like that. Again, just kind of continuing that on, and then to kind of keep with the high school flavor of it. The stuff they talk about is, again, just like hallway, I'm going to love you forever. You don't understand. I have something to do. It's almost like kind of maybe one of those, sometimes movies in the 70s and 80s played up to this weird kind of fetish, I guess, of like the older man, and there'd be just this young woman who didn't know anything about the world, who just, I want to come with you. I want to be, you don't understand what I've seen.
And
that kind of
stuff. See, that's the thing too, where we look at and in here that I really kind of enjoyed about the Tanis love triangle. Because instead of being the young naive girl, it's actually, she's an elf. She's technically
Old
age-wise girl, but she is.
Yeah.
She's the old naive girl.
Right.
And then from just a little bit we know of Kit at this point, Kit is the young worldly fighter girl.
Right.
And so that I did like the fact that they did kind of flip that a little bit. But you could read it right. But you're right. You could read it right away that it's like, I want to come with you, and I'm going to renounce my family for you. And shut up, you're an elf. You're a rich girl who's lived as a rich girl your entire 145 years or however old you are right now. You're not going to war.
They're shunning those old 70s girls and getting to a powerful woman of the 80s.
Shoulder pads and all.
Shoulder pads and all. Pants, suits and all.
I didn't really... It wasn't my favorite chapter of the book, but you know what? It built a little bit of a character relationship between them. You got to delve into Tanis's backstory a little bit. And you know what? The chapter really wasn't that long. So it's...
That's true. It was, I looked at it earlier.
The smallest
it was
chapter
like
in the book.
2 or 3 pages. Conversation between Tanis and
Laurana.
But there is a great piece here that I looked at and that I saw. There's a whole section here, and the story goes, they're standing in the moon, in the light of the moons, talking, and we find out that Tanis is wearing a ring that was given to him by Laurana.
Oh yeah.
And so he gives it back to her and says, I can't, my heart is not completely yours anymore. I don't deserve to wear this. She takes it, whips it into the woods. At which point we find out that Taz has been sitting here watching this the entire time.
Taz, my
and
favorite
Taz,
character.
and not stealing the ring in the woods.
Never.
But Taz looks down and gives a great, it's a great piece for his character. Goes, oh, I bet one of them's going to want this at some point. So he picks up the expensive ring, puts it in his bag to hold it for other people because he found it in the woods.
And again, those are the kind of things, though, that I feel, I know I've been hating on a lot of this stuff, but that really make the book, in a lot of ways, work for me, is when you have this really kind of funny, juxtaposition of kind of really adolescent high school.
Dramatic.
It's
taking
this,
itself too serious.
Seriously, and then that's almost like they know it, and so they do a little, but ching at the end of it.
Exactly, because why wouldn't the kinder, the thing that is, almost a house elf at this point.
Right.
Why wouldn't you just be hanging out in the woods, watching them have this deep discussion, and happen to be standing right where she threw the ring?
Right.
And again, the whole idea of he never steals anything. I'm just going to hold on to this because I'm sure they'll want it back at some point.
The luck of the kinder.
And again, we're going to outfit everybody because it's talked again after this, then going into chapter 8, that Tikka gets some armor from Gilthanas. And they talk about how they have to cut her skirt all the way up to reveal her, I quote, fluffy white panties. So again,
and then we find out, or we knew this was kind of building throughout the couple of chapters, that Caramon has the hots for little Tikka.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I it's funny to say, but I kind of like this. The juxtaposition, I'm using that word way too much in this, but between, you have this kind of over-the-top dramatics, I feel like, when Tanis and Laurana are kind of doing their thing, it feels way too much. and when Gold Moon, Love Wind, Bloodjoy has their whole love thing, it feels way too much.
It's so stressed.
These like make more sense. It's just like it's this total just barroom relationship that these two have. Like, I find you attractive, I find you hot, and they're just together.
It's the oafish linebacker in the high school football movie.
Yeah.
And cheerleader number 3.
Yeah, you're my woman.
I just find him so cute.
Yeah, and it just makes sense. Although then I don't. Well, I think we'll get there.
Yeah,
Never mind.
definitely.
I'm gonna.
We begin this little bit of a flirtation, which, like you said, I really like this little bit of a flirtation between Tikka and Caramon, just simply because we don't have that ungodly, oppressive feeling of, oh, Gold Moon and Riverwind are so in native love with each other,
right? Yeah.
and the Tanis love triangle,
right?
Here.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It's just kind of okay. We're gonna flirt a little bit, and we have something to make Caramon smile. Because I at this point in the novel too have felt bad for Caramon because he seems like such a nice guy.
Yeah,
and he's got all he's got to do is take care of his brother.
Right,
and his brother is constantly making comments to him about.
Just verbally
Yeah.
taking him.
I will say though, sure enough, the rule of 3, like you said, soon enough there's going to be somebody else.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing
who
is
decides to ruin the Caramon and Tikka.
Yes,
love
you
train.
don't have time for a woman when you're taking care of your invalid brother.
right. Exactly.
And who's going to take precedence here? I pointed at Paul as I was saying you because he, again, in my head, it's very much Caramon.
So then we have another draconian fight with draconians, and then, as if we didn't need another character, we bring in another one.
There he is.
This bothers me so much because we bring in Eben, right? And we're going to start alluding to the fact that this guy is not trustworthy. And then the rest of this book, they're going to talk about how there's somebody here who's going to betray us. And you've just brought in like the guy with twiddling his thumbs.
I'm thinking about this too much in my head when I'm reading it. Like initially, I'm right there with you. Like, well, duh, it's Eben.
Yeah,
but you know what? And then they start talking. He starts blaming Gilthanas a bunch.
Yes,
like, oh,
and
man.
you're like, well, Gilthanas is new. He could be the bad guy.
He's new too, and Eben makes a good point. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking it'd be a lot cooler if Gilthanas was the traitor.
Yes.
Whoa, all this huge treachery.
Yeah. And I want to bring up something here, too, with the fact that you guys automatically jumped with Eben. This was Ebon to me.
Oh, really? Ebon.
Yes.
Is Ebon from something?
I don't know. But this was the capital E was Ebon.
Oh,
just
Ebon.
to sound even douchier and elven.
So yeah, they pick up Eben, and they're on their way.
They reach Pax Tharkas, right? So finally the end is in sight, right? I mean, we're getting there. We're ready to kind of get to the final battles, right? So we get to chapter 9. To make things even more complicated with naming structures, instead of just going to Pax Tharkas, they have to go through something called the Slamori, which is just described as the secret way leading to Pax Tharkas, which I felt just kind of a layer of unnecessary kind of language. Like, again, Hickman always talks about how he tries to create layers to make it feel like there's more depth to this land or this world than there really is. I feel like this is the kind of stuff that he's talking about, and not a lot of it really works. Where it's just like, yes, there's a secret way. It's called the Slamori. Like maybe he was like eating coleslaw.
They have to go through the slums.
You know what? And I'm gonna bring this back to like me just getting back into the book towards the end.
Right.
Here. And you know what? We're on this place called Kryn. There's a place called Keishu. There's a place called Solace. Why wouldn't there be a place called Slamori?
Slamori.
And see, I took the whole Slamori aspect too as you can't automatically jump the level to fight the boss at the end of the level right away. You have to make it through. It's the same level. It's the same level of Castlevania that you've played 4 different times already. They've just changed the color scheme.
Yeah.
But yeah, you still have to get through that level in order to get to the next boss, in order to get to the next big boss to
Right.
finish the game.
And I couldn't help it. I had this in my head because Evan then is hesitant to go. He doesn't want to go. And what I see here is they're all up kind of like looking down into this valley is what I took it, and into Pax Tharkas, the secret way, and they need to kind of get underneath Pax Tharkas to get through these caverns or the dungeons that are underneath to sneak up on them. And I'm just seeing the Wizard of Oz when they're all looking at the witch's castle, and all those green-faced whatevers are walking in. I'm just hearing, oh. That's all I can think of with this. Okay, at this point, though, like you said, Luke, I am getting back into this novel. I feel like from here on out, I know I've been the real wet blanket on this one, but I really enjoy the ride from here on out. Especially once we get through Slamori and into the belly of Pax Tharkas. The first thing they find this tomb, right? Kind of, or there's a.
This is super cool to me. I don't know what it is about Weiss and Hickman do undead so good.
They do it well. They need to stay in the dungeons.
Write some zombie books. Hey,
Right,
Weiss, Hickman, get back together, make some like zombie ghost books because you're good at this. You're good at creepy. I love it.
Very good at creepy. I love this whole and I'm a big fan. I said this I think in the last episode that I'm a big fan of like Conan. I love that 70s Conan feel. Which this has, I think, where we have these kind of, the ladies are all kind of, extremely beautiful, and you have all your big barbarians and stuff, and they don't always fight dragons. I get sometimes tired of the dragons. Here we've got a giant slug, and that's something that's always happening in a lot of these old 70s pulps. They're always fighting like kind of giant salamanders and slugs and oozes and giant alligators or boa constrictors. I kind of like that kind of more primeval feel, where everything's kind of dark and dank and in swamps and in dungeons and they're fighting more oozes and slimes. So this part for me was great, this giant slug.
Oh yeah, I'm totally, I love gross, dark, creepy.
Yeah.
I'm already getting back into it with these whispers of a traitor and something's happening.
Yeah.
And then there's creepy ghosts, and then there's a gross slug, and then there's some super awesome sword that Tanis gets at the end. The main character's cool now. He has this cool sword. Like,
right.
Why did this take so long?
A bit contrived. I mean, it just kind of appears in his hand because there was like this tomb, this elf, or who was it that was?
And see, that's the thing, is I wanted more explanation. I wanted some otherworldly reason for Tanis to be able to wield this sword.
Right.
Like Caramon picked it up and it burned his hand and he had to set it down or something. I wanted a little bit more of the Forge and fantasy.
I think this just adds to the mystery of kind of what is going on. We have the discs, and now all of a sudden the sword is appearing. I feel like this entire book so far has just been character development for the later books. Like, it's just been kind of, here's the start of a quest. Now let's get to know some of the characters a little bit more. Let's give them some cool things.
Well, and see, again, that's a D&D thing as well, where it's like, okay, you found the Sword of Aragoth.
Yeah. Well,
it's something. It's something.
I
it's something the DM was looking through a manual one time and like, hey, this is kind of cool. I want to put this in a campaign. Hey, you guys stumble upon this sword.
Right. Well, they talk about it's a tomb of Kith Cannon, who is a pre-cataclysm warrior guy, and then Caramon or Tanis just ends up with his sword, and they even say the sword's name is like Worm Slayer. Is the name of the sword?
Oh, I see. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
nowadays say that.
Oh, see, and I jumped on that. I'm like, oh, geez, worm, like a dragon, looks like a worm with wings.
Exactly. Exactly. So
the fire verb.
Again, maybe it's because of where we've been that this has been all like this is picking up for me, and I'm like, woohoo! There's also the callous part of me that says, yeah. So do we ever learn about Kith Cannon again? We'll find out. Or Worm Slayer, or where this comes from. I'm sure one of those 190 books TSR cranked out had to deal with it.
When I'm reading this right now, I don't know that there's 190 books.
Right.
But I'm enjoying the mystery behind this sword.
Yeah.
I've kind of forgotten about the discs.
For something,
but I'm enjoying the sword.
Well, that's because we haven't found the magical hat that allows us to read the discs.
Right. Well, and I'm a guy who likes, Dragon Slayer and Beastmaster and all those kind of 70s, 80s sword and sandal. Hey, yeah, so the guy gets a sword called Worm Slayer. It's a cool name. I'm with it. Whatever. We're going. But we're in Pax Tharkas. now.
We're in
Chapter
Pax
10.
Tharkas. Are they? Did we get split up now?
Yes.
Yes, this is where we get split up. Chapter 11, end of chapter 10, beginning of
Chapter 11.
Well, we get this
Chapter
chain
11.
room. I just like the fact that like the name of the chapter is chain room.
Chain room, yes,
uh,
chain room.
Yeah, yeah. Because
But this is
Something
the
kinky is going on in there.
It puts the notion on its skin.
it should be said there's these giant chains. So they prominently feature later on in the book. So they're setting up kind of the final set piece. It's kind of like I almost feel like here we are. We're at the end of the movie. You know, and the camera is doing a pan and scan of the castle and showing the chain room and everything. Like this is the setup, guys. This is where all the action's gonna happen.
And see, this is where, and this is going to go so far down the sci-fi rabbit hole that
Yay! Finally, sci-fi.
I hope that somebody understands
a
this.
comment that's not related to D&D.
This was, but it is
No,
because this was so.
I'm throwing my hat against the wall.
This was so Krull,
Oh, okay. Crawl, I accept.
not
yeah.
Krull the Conqueror.
Call that crazy movie.
Yes, the
Krull,
crazy 70s
yes.
Krull movie with the big
Sword,
monster at
sandals,
the
and
end.
lasers.
Yes, sword, sandals, lasers, and a weird boomerang.
Have you guys
What?
seen this movie?
I have
never
no
even
idea
heard
what
of
you're
this.
Oh
talking
my
about.
god, you have to. Because it's
Listeners,
so
pause right now. Go look up Krull on YouTube. Just watch a trailer. Wow.
and make sure to come back.
It
And then
is.
come back.
It is. But there are moments of that movie that are pure brilliance.
I love Krull. Yeah.
And there are moments and that's one of the things where once they break into the bad guy's castle, you do, like you said, you have that surround where all of a sudden you have cameras flying through the castle to set up different rooms that are going to come into play.
Yeah, so you know where you're at when these characters are split up, like you said, and they're doing different things around this whole last set piece. You know what's
There
going
is
on.
all that, but then the bigger issue we have here is the splitting up of the dynamic duo. Tass and Flint are separated.
It's so funny because I never saw them as the dynamic duo, and I so accept Fizban and Taz as being the duo. And this is where I see R2 and C-3PO.
Oh,
them
okay.
bumbling around this castle, this is R2 and
I
C-3PO.
was so
But
happy
when
when they got Tass and Fizban together, and just their interaction between those characters just
Right.
made me laugh.
It
It
is.
was
But I don't want to seem like I'm
even if it
I'm
was-
disappointed that it happened, but it's just, I was so used to it. There's always been this like back and forth between them, and they had that little moment in the swamp when Flint loses his axe and his hat, or just his hat, and then Tass is off with his new friend. Maybe Flint's out there getting jealous. I don't know.
I'm going to say they're setting this up to me. Weiss and Hickman, or maybe just Hickman, watched the first Star Wars movies a couple times, and they were just like, okay, we got Fizban and Tass, that'll be R2-D2 and C-3PO. They're going to be off on their own, doing like opening the, opening shield generators. They're going to be getting them out of different things. Then you're going to have, our heroes.
Shut down all trash compactors at the detention level.
No, shut them all down, right?
And see, I saw this a completely different way. This was, this for me was, what if Ben Kenobi took R2-D2 with him when he went to shut off the tractor?
But no, we got Tanis Kenobi fighting Vader in the courtyard on this one.
I love that idea. Oh man! Come on, Ben.
And with this weird with this weird Reverend Jim from Taxi thing figured into Fizban, with
Right.
just the well, I don't know what I'm doing.
That is the voice that I had in my head. Now it will forever be him. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay. Again, now we're on to chapter 11. Taz and Fizban bumble around together. Again, I have put in my notes, I put down, I should hate this, and I don't.
I love it.
I
I love it too.
love Taz and Fizban.
The immediacy of how dangerous this dark elf is.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I do love here is the Scooby-Doo aspect of this.
Yes.
It is the we're getting to find out who the real big baddie is. We're going to pull a mask off somebody later. But first, let's look for clues. Let's split up, gang.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's true. Yes. But here we have Goldmoon saying that Verminard knows the discs are here. Because
There's a
they're
presence
linked.
I have not felt in a long time.
They are linked by the-
Lord Vader can sense that his son is near.
I'm not kidding. It was so blatant when she said this in the book that I literally, in my head, immediately jump to Luke in the back of Shuttle Tiderium, flying past that Star Destroyer on the way to Endor.
I shouldn't have brought the disc with me. I'm endangering the mission.
There's lots of command ships. Like, I mean, like.
Don't
get jittery. Fly casual. You know, I mean, I'm just. It was so blatantly Star Wars right there that, again, I feel like they are pulling from a hodgepodge of things. And some stuff is sticking to the wall and other things aren't.
They definitely are. And I'm going to hit this from a different, like the same way Klob has been, but from a different perspective.
Yeah.
In Dungeons & Dragons, there is detect magic, but it doesn't range that far, and you don't know exactly what it is.
Right.
So, yes, they are. It's definitely a...
contrivance, I feel.
And had I been...
Right?
Yeah.
Had I, up until this point, been given a little bit more information about Verminard,
Yeah.
I would have been okay with it.
They should have had Verminard from the beginning, leading this host against their home world, their hometown, and everything else. See, again, Vader, home world, right? I mean, he should have been an ever-looming presence. They should have had this connection between him then. If they want to establish a connection between him and Goldmoon, fine. Have it where they're constantly fleeing from him, and he's always just one step behind them, and she's constantly causing danger. None of this is fleshed out, and this just seems dropped as just some sort of willy-nilly piece of, like...
But it's good.
It's a good idea.
It is, but it shouldn't be popping up this late in the book.
And not when I'm thinking Endor, which would have been a year before. Most of the kids reading this book would have just gotten out of the theater watching Return of the Jedi. This is that scene.
And I think, too, it's a device to build some urgency. It's we better hurry because they know we're here.
Right. Well, anyway, there's this giant red dragon in Pax Tharkas named Ember. And again, another thing that kind of bothers me, I mean, giant red dragons are awesome, but again, trying to add layers that are unnecessary. His name is Ember, or Pyros. I mean, like, all these dragons have multiple names.
I liked that. I liked that they're so old that they have multiple names and they've lived multiple lives.
Oh, yeah,
and there's multiple
things.
There's multiple things that could have been done. Plus, there's also the aspect of, no, you know, my name is not Bob. It is Mr. Bob. You are not worthy.
But I'm also known as Bob Wormslayer, or back in the old world, Rob Slayer. I mean, I don't know.
You are so puny, you are not deserving of calling me my real name.
And it goes back to, and I'm going to jump genres again here.
Good.
It goes back to the old idea of, you know, what do you call yourself in your head? You know, because we jump into the dragon's thoughts here for a while as well. Do you call yourself by your first name? Do you call yourself by your last name? Do you call yourself Batman in your head?
True.
You know, what do you call yourself in your head? I liked that aspect of getting a little bit in the dragon's head and how old the dragon was meant to feel here.
I'm just, see, for me, they haven't done a good enough job making this world feel, I mean, it is epic. I mean, what is epic? This world is epic, but I don't feel it earns the right to have all of this naming scheme and everything. It's trying to be, it's like it's parading around in too big of pants. It thinks it has bigger pants than it does. I'm calling it out as world building douchebaggery. I just feel like it doesn't earn the right to give all these names to things. Well, it's like if I'm watching the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from the 80s and everything has multiple names and it's trying to masquerade as something it really isn't at this point. Maybe it'll get there after 190 books, but I don't feel it earns this level.
And the issue that I have here is not so much with it has multiple names, it has a backstory.
Right.
The inconsistency of the dragon powers. Some dragons can do this, some dragons can do this within the same species. This is where we learn about the whole dragons can just magically transform into humans.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, it's cool because it's different.
It's different. I'll give you
I've
that.
seen.
That is I'm turning into Claude later on the episode here. It's a D&D thing. They can shapeshift. But maybe that's just, you know, I wish I knew.
But see,
I'm a bad dungeon master. I should know why some dragons can. Why
the explanation here wasn't shapeshifting. There was no explanation here. If you didn't know that from D&D, and I had actually forgotten that from playing the old day, it's just, well, how come every dragon isn't just turning into a human and going and messing with things then?
Right. Again, I do feel like this is all just playing into my whole idea that this book is definitely tailored towards people. I would definitely recommend it to people who have played D&D and know something of D&D, because it allows you to fill in a backstory or be predisposed to accept things that happen in this book. But anyway, the men dress up as women.
Because we've done everything else. We've taken from every single solitary other genre in this book. Let's throw a little cross-dressing in.
Yeah, of course. So they're going to dress up as women. The children are guarded by another red dragon, not Ember Pyros, okay, but another red dragon who's named Flamestrike, and she has dementia or something.
She is old, damaged,
right,
physically, mentally.
She is your PTSD dragon.
Yeah.
She is that's the way I took it. It is the dementia on top of the PTSD on top of everything else that she's ever had to do, and so now she can't see. There's cataracts over her eyes. She doesn't have teeth. There's this aspect
later on in the
it.
book, I feel like they do kind of show the PTSD where when there's a fight and she's constantly talking about her kids, all of those things. That is PTSD in a nutshell.
Right.
You have that flashback. She had that flashback.
And we've had all these really serious dragons now, so let's throw in a mildly humorous dragon. How do you make a dragon humorous? Well, of course you give them dementia and PTSD.
The old daughter, who it should be said, loves the children. I didn't mind this aspect.
The 1980s were a better time.
Yeah, right.
I did. I liked the aspect that she loved the human children.
Yeah, like she took them in. I got it. Like, does she not really know they're humans? She thinks they're her baby dragons. Is kind of how I took it.
Yes, that's exactly how I took it. And I like the aspect too that we have. That it does kind of flesh out dragon culture here as well, because we don't just have the big, bad, mean, evil, man-eating dragons.
Right.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
Maybe there's a family side. Maybe there's the softer side of the scale, if you will.
And you know what? It's unexpected. Like
yes, exactly.
I would never have thought of it. What if there's a dragon who's damaged and accidentally fought on your side?
Right. Because when I first heard it, there's this Metafleur or whatever her name is, the Flamestrike, I was like, oh, well, here we go, another dragon to fight. So now we gotta fight two red dragons. Oh, wait, she's damaged. I immediately knew she was gonna be on the good side. Like, as soon as I read it, there was no hiding the fact she's gonna be good. I didn't care. I liked this part.
They did worry me for a little bit, though, when they were trying to flee from her.
And sneak past her.
But bring it back a little bit, when we're in Ember's point of view, we start to learn about another plot point. The man with the gem.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And I feel like this is definitely, we know we're writing a trilogy, so...
I feel that this guy comes in way too late in this book. Like, he's thrown in just at the very end. I feel like, man,
why isn't he in book 2?
Yeah. Oh, or move him to book 2.
Yeah.
Why is he here? Because he comes in, it's almost like he comes in like Can dancing with a neon sign. Like, I'm important, and I have a gem in my chest.
Sort of. And I don't really like it when we get his point of view, and he's just like, I know I'm important, but I don't know what side I want to fight for.
Right.
Like,
you know what? You know why?
Because who are you?
I feel, to me, he detracts and he sucks away all of the energy from what's happening here. You have your heroes going to this final fight. You know that the final showdown is coming, and your stakes are already high because you're like, well, they've almost killed people a bunch. This time, I'm thinking somebody's got to kick it in this one. Somebody's dying, right? And then you're going to all of a sudden have all this other mythology and another character last minute show up. And this is the guy we have to worry about.
And this and again, like Luke said, I feel this should have been in the next book.
Yeah.
This should have been
number 2.
This is the character that you bring in the second book, in the second movie, in the second part of in the second major part of the storyline here, rather than all of a sudden tacking him on at the end of the book here and going, oh yeah, there's also this guy you have to watch out for. Well, who is he?
Yeah,
it's like it's basically getting to the end. It's getting to the end of it's getting to the end of New Hope and finding out that the Emperor has Bob the Sith apprentice.
Why don't we always use
somewhere.
my name? But no, it's true. It's completely unnecessary. It sucks the oxygen out of the scene. We just want to see our heroes fight the big bads. We don't want all of a sudden your last minute cockamamie world building and that jam down our
And I've
throats
already
like we're
learned
in.
elven history and politics. I've learned dragon history and politics. There's been a smattering of human history and politics.
Yep.
There's we found out a whole bunch about Kender road trips with the family.
And can I just say that?
This was just one more thing.
In my head, I don't like the idea of a guy with a weird gem in his chest. I just hate the visual. so
it's Iron Man.
Yeah, I guess he's kind of Iron Man, but that's more mechanical.
See, I went more Iron Fist.
Ooh.
Oh well, there we go.
Okay. I'm okay with it. I like it.
All right, we got some more bumbling around from Taz and Fizban.
Just as we're getting bored to death, kind
These
of with
guys
this politics
show up
and everything. Taz and Fizban to the rescue.
Yep, they're there, and they're kind of bumbling around in like this.
They're spying on Ember and Lord Vermin.
Oh, we're gonna go there first.
Yes.
Yeah. I also have where they go and they see this this artistic rendering. They're like in some sort of hall, and there's art on the walls showing the Solomonic Knights and things that have happened. And there's finally reference to the Dragonlance. This entire series is called Dragonlance,
and we have 15 pages left of the book at this point.
We're about. I have the paperback in my hand. We are somewhere around 400 pages in.
And we have a Dragonlance. Maybe instead of these discs, maybe they should have been trying to get a Dragonlance.
We don't have a Dragonlance. We have a painting of a Dragonlance or a tapestry of a Dragonlance on the wall, saying that it existed at one point when one big bad knight hoisted it and took down a dragon with the Dragonlance.
And
we have no history here whatsoever except for this weird little pictograph on the wall that shows the dude holding it.
No. A little foreshadowing, guys. I might self-implode or explode as we go through these books in the months to come, because I have issues with this Dragonlance, and if you call your series Dragonlance, there had better be lots of Dragonlance in it. And boy, I don't know.
I would have been. I may have been happier at this point to just meet a dragon named Lance.
Okay, so there's a prisoner elf named Ellison who Goldmoon explains all of this god stuff to. And he's dying of this wasting disease. This is finally where these discs come into play. And I feel at this point...
I didn't even remember he had wasting disease.
He had a wasting disease. Here's, again, if it sounds to some listeners who are really into the mythology of Dragonlance and are probably going insane with how they're like, that Bob doesn't know anything about this. At this point, I am ready for this final fight, and I am, my pace of reading starts to increase, and...
Definitely.
Well, I don't need a 14th character right now that we found in a prison. I want to fight.
And again, if it sounds like it didn't connect with me always, and there probably dropped things I missed as to what these discs were doing and why it's important Goldmoon has them, and then now it's being given to Ellison and he is the chosen one here for these discs. If it sounds like I don't have a good grasp as to what these things are, I feel like maybe the book didn't do a good job of really pinning a rose as to what this is.
The discs were definitely left in mystery.
Yeah.
And it's, again, I feel like, what was his name again?
Elliston.
Elliston. I should know.
Or Ellison.
See Elliston in the prison cell here as kind of coming across as the chosen one. This is totally the Mormonism aspect for me. This is the one dude that we found in the cell who can actually read the discs.
Yes.
And so as we move forward from that, now we've picked up, member 17 or 11 or how many ever people we have in our party. Let's take the wasting guy with us because he can actually read these discs and start this new religion.
Right. And this is just more of the guy with a gem in his chest. It's, you're writing a trilogy. You're setting up stuff for book 2.
Yeah, you're populating the next book.
Book 2.
Just set it up in book 2. Hey, we're getting to chapter 13, and let me tell you, I gotta point it out because the title of the chapter is Question, No Answers, Fizban's Hat. That, in a nutshell, is exactly what I'm feeling at this point. I have questions. I have almost no answers. Oh, Fizban's hat. I'm excited. Fizban's here. Like, there's the part that I want. Everything else, I don't care about these discs. I don't know why in this final battle that you're bringing up more lore and more mythology, except that I feel that you think the demographic reading this is just. That's all they want is mythology and lore the whole time. And I don't know.
We've already started this aspect with Fizban too, where the hat's flown off when they've been flying. This hat has disappeared and come back like 4 times.
Right, he keeps losing his hat.
I feel like I'm playing Mario 64, and I lose the hat, and I have to go pick it up because he doesn't have his powers when he has his hat. He's a little bit weaker. It's so dumb.
I love it. I love it. I love the aspect of the comic relief hat that has a mind of its own.
Right, because they are
the light. It's that little ball of light that follows them around that just messes with them.
Right, because
this little ball of light, I forgot about. Oh, I love the little ball.
So
of light.
Exactly.
So
I love that.
You
part.
really like this scene, Luke, right? So set it up. What's happening in this scene with Fizban's hat and it falls? And...
Oh yes. Okay, so Tass and Fizban are spying on Lord Verminard and Ember.
Right.
And it's so good. It's classic. I mean, Fizban has been around for what? 100 pages.
Yeah.
He's
13 chapters.
Yeah.
And he's my favorite.
Right.
And he's listening to Tass's dumb stories about traveling or whatever.
Right.
And they're spying on these guys, and he loses his hat.
Yeah.
And it should be said here, they're spying on him. They're spying on these guys from the ceiling.
Right. Yeah. Because
he loses his hat.
Yeah, they're above them. They're in like some sort of big shaft of the tower, I guess.
They're like, it's like, see, I read it as this weird, because they had to climb up the chains
It was like a
to
balcony
get there.
that they got.
And so there's like,
Yeah.
see, and I saw it as like this weird like chandelier type deal, like gears and
Oh,
chandelier
okay.
deal that they're in the clock tower looking down at them. And
Right, I get it, yeah. So whatever they're doing, they're looking to, because it's a big open shaft so that this dragon can get out to the outside world when he's dragon form. Why doesn't he just walk out as a human into the courtyard and turn into a dragon? Does he need this giant built escape hatch?
We are given a little bit that that magic takes a part of you.
Ah.
So are you going to transform every time and walk out?
Okay.
But he kind of willy-nilly does the magic stuff anyway. It's
Yeah.
a Dragonlance book. I don't know.
just because you built the man door onto your garage doesn't mean that you don't have the doggy door off to the side too.
That's true.
You know what, Claude? I like that a lot better.
Yeah, that's a better explanation.
Sometimes you just want to walk out in your own form, man. You want to be in your own skin.
Okay, so anyway, this really great kind of Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy thing happens where the hat falls off and they watch it just kind of in shocked amazement as it kind of floats down. And
what do? You can't reach it. Like,
right.
We're gonna die.
Here's the thing, though. I'm thinking this whole time, Fizban's a pretty important guy. He's a magic user. There's no kind of callback spell. You can't like harness that thing, web it to a wall, something.
Would Fizban do that?
No. Well, I think coming up in the next few books, we'll talk about maybe why or why not Fizban might not have done anything and let this hat just fall. Because I feel we're led to think that Fizban, even in this one, I think it's not a spoiler, that I think Fizban, he's allowing things to happen, and sometimes he's acting like he doesn't know what's going on, and he's bumbling and doddering. But it's
like
all
it's spoiling.
I don't think so. Because
I don't think so.
When I read this book the first time, I got that.
See, I always got the aspect that Fizban is more intelligent than he's coming across.
Yeah.
And that this is kind of just part of his thing.
There was an interaction between Fizban and Razalin. Remember the hourglass eyes, he can see everything. And the reaction between Fizban and Raz,
You're right.
all of a sudden Raz was, oh shoot, this guy is very powerful.
Yeah, that aspect of seeing, you're right, that aspect of seeing the truth, there was that one thing. And if you remember, basically at the end of that, when Rhys actually looks at him and sees the truth of Fizban, the scene is shut down with Fizban basically just going, "Shut up," and walks away.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Well, and again, Chekhov's gun,
And Ray's
because this old man showed up at the beginning. I've been waiting this entire book just like scanning. Okay, old man,
300
old man,
pages in, the
old
gun's
man,
taken off
old
the
man.
wall.
Finally, it's taken off the wall. I'm like, okay, obviously the same thing. So I know that from this book even, there's more to Fizban than meets the eye, and that maybe he's allowing some of this stuff to happen.
Exactly, and we're coming through here, and so they're spying. We're watching the hat float down, and
Right.
it is that slow motion, Dreamweaver.
This is going to come around to when I give my little bit at the end. I am taking Fizban for face value right now.
Okay.
He is bumbling. He is obviously very powerful at some point
But just
in
a
his
cracked
life,
wizard.
But he's just like he has beef with trees. And this guy, you know what? Maybe he might forget that. Oh, I could bring the hat back with Mage Hand if I really wanted to.
Right. Well, it should be said now, the dragon has alerted their presence, and we get this kind of awesome chase through the castle with, and this visually in my head looked awesome as the dragon's coming behind him, blowing fire and trying to get them. And it ends with them kind of trying to go down the chain room,
This is really good.
he blows all of this fire the dragon does, melts through the chains break, and it ends with them plummeting, and you don't know. So meanwhile, while all this is happening, and we think that those guys are dead, Tanis and friends sneak past Metaphor dressed up as women. The red dragon wakes up. We think, oh no, right? Wormslayer starts to hum in the presence of dragons.
Well, why would they?
Yeah, come on. This is good. This is. I mean, we're already ripping off.
This is
Tolkien.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. This is the Hobbit sword.
Bloody chunks of Tolkien. Whoever wrote that, brilliant. I mean, that is what it is. I don't care. In all honesty, I have gotten so used to in this book reading through it and it becoming a pop cultural popcorn to me. Like it's like I'm reading it, and as things are happening, I'm getting just flashes of movies and other things popping into my head. So much that I'm now dead to it. I don't care that Wormslayer hums in the presence of dragons. I don't care. I'm not even trying to equate it to anything anymore. Although I guess I did in my notes. But
Well, and I just and this whole scene where this whole idea of them sneaking by dressed as women, for whatever reason, I had the Middle East. I had the Indiana Jones scene in my head for this,
Yep.
where he's in like the belly dancer outfit with the little
face covering,
the face covering
The veil.
over his beard, and just walks by and nobody pays any
has
attention.
heavily
Nobody
charcoal eyes.
Yes, nobody pays any attention to like the 4 ugliest women you've ever seen with beards that just stroll on by.
This is true. Oh, man. So, I mean, I like this scene. Again, when it gets comedic and kind of farcical, I really enjoy it. This is something I'd have held out a few beats, though. And we were left thinking that Fizban and Tass were dead, but...
They're back.
Yeah.
Holy cow! They're still running.
Okay, how did they live through this?
Well, of course, when you're falling, what spell do you use but feathers?
Feather fall. I remember when I first read this book and I propositioned doing this podcast to Luke and we were talking about it a little bit, I came right out and I was like, so I think you'll like it because they use spells and stuff from D&D. In fact, I just read about the one they're falling and the magic user casts feather fall, and I explained it to him as he creates a giant pile of feathers to fall into. Luke hits the ceiling like, that is not what featherfall is.
It's not that you fall into feathers; it's that you fall like a feather.
Well, this
Like
book
the
took
beginning
it
of Thor.
pretty... Maybe in Dragonlance, when you're playing that system, you create a giant pile of feathers.
What is... No, I mean, let's just think about this with normal physics in mind.
Right.
It's a lot easier to slow down and fall like a feather than it is to plummet into a pile of feathers.
Right.
Like, what?
And I don't know how many rules... okay, I am not the guy who has all the rules on magic and things like that, but it feels to me like it's more in keeping with the ideas of magic that you would be like pulling on maybe forces of the earth and gravity and stuff like that.
And
what's already there to slow yourself,
and
then
changing the state of matter.
Then actually creating out of nothingness a giant pile of feathers.
I-
That's very cartoonish.
I read this as Fizban messing up on the spell. For some reason,
I agree with you.
Just because I know the
I agree
spell,
with
I
you.
know what Featherfall is. In my mind,
It's
it
a
was,
joke for D&D players.
Yeah, it was he messed up, and instead
it's
of
literal
falling like a
feathers.
feather, he created feathers.
I like that. That's actually that's much better.
That's the same way. That's the same way I read it as well.
Oh, that saves this part for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Except
Fizban
for
messed up, or he just wanted to mess with Task.
except for the part where he just dies, and we get like a paragraph of like Taz wiped the tear from his eye as he saw what happened, and we never hear from it again.
Right.
Ooh man.
Oh, these people with
But then, see, that's something.
main characters
That's something to be
crying.
noted. Is Taz survived falling of feathers? As far as we know at this point, Fizban did not.
Right.
And it's just, and I had this, the choking image of like I almost half expected him to like force disappear. But I have this like choking image of just like the rumpled robes on the concrete with that little bit of blood running through the cobblestones and the hand that's like just laying on the concrete above the head. As Taz, we do have part of the scene where Taz like rolls over the feathers and it was like, oh God, that was close. And like, okay, wake up, Fizban. And Liz like poking him and is like, wake up. And I have this image of the 12-year-old kid poking the old grandpa.
Oh my God!
You know what? I mean, as touching as that was, Club. I mean, like really, I love your interpretation of this. What I got was, I'm waiting for it to come back. Like it's like 2 sentences of Taz falling, getting up, going over to Fizban, and not getting something. But you just did that in the last chapter.
Yeah, right.
Where they were falling, and they're like, just kidding.
Yeah.
They're not falling. They grab the chains. Now there's going to be a spell, and there's going to be feathers, and they're going to fall into feathers.
All right.
And you're going to kill off the best character that you brought into this book like that.
Right. You have at this point 2 barbarians and kill off one of the barbarians.
2 barbarians with the worst love story I have ever read.
Yeah.
And
There is lots of people that could die
You're
here.
going to kill off the comedic relief, who is
The
I'm
only
so mad.
Yeah.
Right now.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, then we quickly shift and find out that Eben's a traitor. Who cares? I don't have anything to say about this.
I know, I'm
from
done.
the beginning.
I'm
Who
done.
cares? Yeah, like that.
I'm
was a
not.
mystery.
I'm not. I will. I'm going to bring this back around. Because they did trick me.
No.
They tricked me. I'm thinking about it like very, very meta. Like,
Right.
okay, are they? It's very obvious that it's him, but do they know it's very obvious that it's him?
And so there, yeah,
the
it's gonna be the other guy.
And I will tell you something else I thought in here too. When everybody started talking about this traitor thing, I went in a totally different direction than you guys. I automatically went to the end of book 1 here. Who the hell's the voice in Raceland's head? And see,
Okay.
that's where I
Okay.
jumped right away. Is Raceland a traitor and he doesn't know it?
Yes. Okay, right,
Yeah.
right,
No.
right.
I made it way more. I did.
I made it way more complicated and probably would have been a better write.
Here's the trouble: is
Then
we're just
introducing
all,
this guy
and this
3
is
chapters
what pins a rose on it for me. Is we're just all sitting here talking off the top of our heads and coming up with better plot devices than what was actually written into this book. We're just
Exactly.
gonna write a guy in at last minute to be a last minute traitor. Stupid.
Yeah.
And he's running with a guy named Barum. Okay. The naming scheme
I
in this
forgot
book
about Barum.
drives me crazy because Barum is the green gem embedded in his chest guy.
Oh, he has a name.
Yeah, so you got Eben and you got
My hands are
Barum,
in the
which are
air.
really close. You got Tass and Tanis
And see, I went right. I had the hardest time with just reading the name Barum on a page, not going barium.
yeah, right.
As in like enema.
He's got to get that gem out of him.
I was thinking more periodic table of elements, but
Yes.
if you want to go enema with barium, that's fine.
Don't even say that. He's got a gem in his chest. If they just literally just went to the periodic table. Okay. But anyway, Pyros and Verminard are about to kill everybody. Okay, now it's finally getting somewhere when this to me was like a video game. Metafluor. Pyros. fight. I mean, we got it right up to the last little bit. The Death Star's about to blow up Alderaan, and all of a sudden, Metaflor flies in the deranged dragon to protect her children and crashes bodily into Pyros.
And see, I had this whole aspect too with, like you said, this is the Mortal Kombat aspect here. We're not throwing spells, we're not doing anything. It's just the two dragons. Ding 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 ding.
I'm okay with it.
I know
I was cool with it.
This part is cool. I love it because you have these two epic big dragons. They're fighting in the sky. Verminard falls off because he was riding on the back of Pyros. He falls off, and I was envisioning one of those weird, he lands in the 3-point Iron Man.
He's going to do the superhero landing. He's going to do the superhero landing.
Oh man, that's hard on their knees. It's totally impressive.
Just throws out his knee.
And see, I love that aspect too, where we have Pyros, who's supposed to be this big, bad battle dragon.
Right.
And we don't know anything about PTSD Dragon other than the little snippets that we've gotten that she's really old and she took place in wars beyond. And she's so school, even being the one with it that's not mentally stable or physically stable anymore. There's this aspect that she is just schooling Pyros without even thinking about it.
Right.
I love it.
I do kind of because I feel like maybe we're led to believe then that Pyros maybe is so arrogant that he thought he'd never be able to taken out, and then you got
and we have this aspect too where we're already told that Pyros is obviously much younger.
Right.
With the aspect of, but the old timer who is just schooling the young timer. I'm up for that in any genre.
Right. So we have these two big dragons fighting in the sky, and our viewpoint shifts as Verminard hits the ground, and we've got Laurana on the ground. Is she just going to be elven eye candy forever, or is she going to finally come out as being kind of this kick butt girl? She sure does. She gets kills all kinds of draconians.
And there was the moment here where too with that is, oh yeah, she's with us still, isn't she?
There was that. Laurana's here.
Oh yeah, she came along for the ride.
Yeah, I'm constantly doing a count here, like, where's Tikka? Have we talked about Tikka? Well, there's River, Moon, Blood, Wind, Lovejoy. Is she around? He around?
And I understand that she's an elf, and I understand that we've been on this journey for a little bit since she joined us. The problem I did have, I was okay with it. I got over it very quickly here, but it's that aspect too of we have this person who hasn't come from this life.
Right.
She's a politician's rich daughter.
Yeah.
Wow, does she handle a sword well?
Yeah. Right.
It is the who taught Princess Leia how to shoot aspect.
Yeah.
Here.
Exactly.
I'm gonna bring it back to D&D. All elves.
Yes, I know. I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that. All elves are taught that. But sparring and actually fighting in a war, fighting on the battlefield with all the other stuff going on are two completely different things.
It just shows that she has the guts to pull out her sword. Yeah. I don't care if I've only learned this in sparring.
Right.
And start fighting a freaking dragon lord.
And like I said, I was okay with it. It was that aspect for me, but I was okay with it simply because of the fact that I actually started to care about her now.
Right. I agree. I never disliked Laurana. I do like her as a character, but
and the aspect within here too is as she's talking, she's on this trip to be. She ran. Remember, she ran away. I don't think we actually talked about.
We didn't talk about her coming back.
Yeah, she ran away from elfin culture, from her father, and is disowned pretty much at this point.
Right.
Because she went to go follow Tanis because she was so in love with him, and she was going to show him that she could be a fighter girl like this Kit girl that he keeps talking about.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so I did like it for that aspect.
I never saw it as that she's trying to bring herself maybe up to the level of, or be like her in some way.
Correct.
You like this fighter girl.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got a girl crush.
Yeah, right. Country song play now. All right, so we're into chapter 15, which we've got 2 chapters left. So chapter 15, we've got the big final fight. We've been saying it's the big final fight, but now it all resolves. So we got Verminard versus Raceland, Caramon, Tanis, and Sturm. They all go down like punks, man. I mean,
so good. I'm loving this.
Verminard has this really cool mace called Nightbringer. I think that's cool. Again, this should have been way back in the first few chapters where you've got Verminard with this big mace. Maybe show him do some horrible things with it. So we're constantly throughout the entire book fearing the presence of Verminard and his mace and his dragon. But just last chapter, he's got this really cool mace called Nightbringer. But it is cool. I love this final fight. Although I do have to say, I do think they all kind of went down kind of like punks. They were able to really take it.
Should have. He had the power of the Queen of Darkness on
That's
his side.
true.
Exactly.
And should you
And-
say he's got Takesis, the Queen of Darkness, behind
And
him.
again, that's a D&D thing. That's a D&D thing. Not even, and it's not even a bad roll. It's not even it's not even a critical roll or a bad roll thing. Is you occasionally, if you're not quote unquote ready,
Right.
or you've maybe jumped the gun a little bit and skipped some steps, smack, you're out.
Just a whisper into the mace, and your body falls to the ground.
Exactly.
Well, here's going to be my issue. My problem comes up here with Gold Melons walking in here, or with Gold Moon walking in, okay? And to me, lazy writing, I feel like they got to this final fight, didn't know how to end it, and they backtracked a couple chapters and wrote in that cockamamie idea about Gold Moon having some sort of connection with Verminard. So now when she walks in, she disrupts him enough and his connection with the Dark Queen so Tanis and Sturm can stab him. Like, again, this is something that should have been teased the entire book. It's just like, 2 chapters ago, you told us all of a sudden out of the blue that there's a connection between Gold Moon and Verminard, and now you're going to use that to defeat him. Like, I feel like they wrote themselves into a corner, and they went and dropped a line to make it work.
And part of that, I think, too, was a writing to try to illustrate the overconfidence of Verminard.
Right.
I've smacked everybody down, and the difference in Gold Moon from the woman we met at the beginning to who these discs and the wand and everything else and her new belief system have started to make her now, to where he thought he had this one. He wasn't expecting anything else. And then all of a sudden it's just, oh, wow, you're not supposed to be here.
I feel like Gold Moon really hasn't changed, though, much as a character. I feel she was kind of this noble savage at the beginning, and nothing has changed besides that she's found faith. She was noble to start with. She's still noble. She hasn't, I don't feel, gone through any kind of arc, except to be there when convenient to the plot. She kills the dragon, back in book 1. And now she's here to disrupt Verminard. She just kind of pops her little blonde head in with her magic staff of do everythingness whenever the plot requires. And I don't feel there's any arc to her whatsoever, aside from, I guess, leveling up and getting a staff.
I read this battle as something totally different. I read it as a avatar of a dark, evil god, and then the avatar of a good god. And it wasn't really them fighting, it was their gods fighting.
I think that's what we're supposed to do.
That is what I read it as was
It's the
one god saying, hey, I'm going to take out your guy. Just one of those. Where it was...
It's the god's chessboard.
Yeah.
And it's the god's chessboard, and here's my white king, here's my white king, here's my black king.
Right.
Here's all the pawns in front of everybody else that have just been smoked by the black king.
I didn't read that at all. I just, I was reading the battle, I was enjoying the battle, and Gold Moon comes in, and when Gold Moon comes in, it's just kind of whatever the authors need her to be.
When Gold Moon comes in, the sun begins to shine.
And with that, they defeat Lord Verminard.
They defeat Lord Verminard,
because the Dark Goddess leaves him.
Right.
Which I liked that aspect of it, because I think that really added to, and I think that that's going to go into further books too, the pettiness of the Dark Goddess, of the, well, I guess you're not going to serve my purpose anymore, so screw you.
Yeah, I've got other minions I can help. But we've still got the dragon, and so Metaflor finally, in one final, exertion, she flies at Pyro, slams him into the side of a mountain. It's just as like the mountain just like explodes or something and kills him. The whole time her face just getting burned. I mean, visually to me this was very cool. Her flying at him and he's just like burning her, and I'm just visualizing her face just melting to just a stump.
I had to read this a couple of times. It was a little confusing the way it was written. I'm like, wait, whose face is getting burned?
Yeah. And just slams him into a mountain to kill him. But, whatever.
At the end of it was super cool.
It was cool.
I liked
Very
the
cool.
exploding mountain with the almost the two fire dragons slamming into the mountain, and then the mountain explodes. I'm like, did they hit a volcano?
Yeah,
did
exactly.
They discover a volcano? Did they make a volcano?
Right, exactly. And so that's the end. Our heroes are all standing bloodied and triumphant at the end of
but
book
somewhere
one.
in there, Eben and Gemboy ran away, but they got stopped. But of course they got stopped because we're gonna wrap up all the plot points that aren't convenient by the end of this book.
Exactly. Again, this is me going back to saying that this TSR was not sure that this was going to be a hit. We got to wrap this up. I'm not going to fault it for that. I've referred to it a million times. One of my favorite film franchises is Star Wars. They didn't think the first one would maybe fly. Wrap it all up in one, boys. Right? So that's okay. I'm not going to fault it for that. But definitely, again, I'm just saying they've added too many plot points in here, especially with Gemboy here at the end. That should have been kicked. All right. So then we end off with a wedding.
Yeah, you can just skip this part of the book.
Yeah.
I only read it because we're doing this podcast. This is boring.
Ellison takes the discs of Mystical, Gold Moon, and Riverwind. Again, we've talked about them before, these great Michael Williams poetry vows.
Oh,
I can't take this
I know
poetry.
you said Michael Williams. I heard Michael McDonald.
Michael Bolton.
I'm gonna be on. But yes, of course we need because of course that's what we need. And I always hate it when authors do this with an epilogue or with something like this. Don't bore me with the epilogue. Set me up for the next book.
Yeah.
Set me up for the next movie. Let me see Ray. I was fine with Ray and Luke talking to each other, Ray and Luke looking at each other over the lightsaber and then cutting it there without having some weird dialogue we had to go through.
Right.
I would rather.
Exactly.
If you don't think you're coming back for another book, who cares? Then for all eternity, your readers can imagine what happened next. Give us some. If your intention is that you're going to write a trilogy, you better leave a lot of good dangling hooks of plot threads that are going to bring us into this next one.
And in 1984, when this was written, in 1984, when this was published, the 4 women who read this novel didn't need the wedding scene at the end. They didn't care about the wedding scene. That's really what I felt it was it's like, we need to finish off a little bit of a love story here.
You can send all your hate mail What is Klob's email address? I agree. This wedding thing at the end, again, it's a wedding between people I didn't care about. I was rooting for one of them to die. This entire book.
And not Fizban.
Yeah, and not Fizban. So I'm not invested in this wedding at all, and it ends with this song of Huma, and again they're trying to create this world with legendary stuff. It's not working. It's not working for me.
And that's like we can sit here, we can hate on this epilogue of the wedding, or we can just go around the table and we can rate this book out of 5. Paul, why don't you start us off?
So, what I think this book deserves is probably 4 kegs of ale out of 5, just because I liked how there were a lot of characters. I liked how I could relate to different people. In D&D, I play a few different characters, and I could relate to more than just one character. I also, hate to say it, in the combat, I enjoyed the back and forth, the transfer of personalities, and seeing what everybody was getting. Instead of just one person's view of a battle, I got to see all 8. Yeah, 8 might have been pushing it, but that's why I'd give it 4. Cloud, what about you?
I'm on the same page with you. I actually really enjoyed this. To go back to something I said actually in our introduction piece, is I'm a firm believer in D&D. Your ambition needs to outweigh your talent. And I think that's kind of what happened to the authors here, is they had very ambitious plans. It just kind of outweighed the talent scheme that they went through here. The second book, I'm really looking forward to talking about, because I feel that a lot of the things that we talked about here are going to be explained and going to come more forward, along with other things that we don't like about it. I'm going to go with a 3.5 Bloody Maces out of 5, because you always got to have a little bit of blood on your sword or a little bit of blood on your weapon to go through that. I think this is great as a definite intro to not only D&D, but if you're looking at that like upper elementary school, lower junior high aspect of an intro just into fantasy novels themselves, I think this is a great way to do this. So like I said, 3.5 Bloody Maces out of 5. Luke, what arbitrary system are you going to go with today?
So this book, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, Volume 1, Books 1 and 2. Man, I'm somewhere, I feel like just from the discussion we've been having, I'm somewhere in the middle. I read through this book, even though it's right on the top of the book in this bold yellow header. It's a Dungeons & Dragons book. I read this sort of, I'm going to say blissfully ignorant that it was a Dungeons & Dragons book. I wasn't like burdened by the, I never heard 20-sided dice rolling. I never was equating it to a campaign, and whenever like a spell would come up that I knew in Dungeons & Dragons, I tried to just get it out of my mind. Because I really enjoy Dungeons & Dragons. But I didn't really enjoy this book. When it came out, it might have not initially been geared at a younger age. But that's kind of what I'm going to say about it is, would I recommend it to a friend? No. Would I recommend it to my younger cousin who's going into the 5th grade? Yes. It's complicated, though. This book Book 1 of this book just kind of needs to not exist, and they need to take Book 2 of Volume 1, and they need to make this better. Book 2 of Volume 1, I had so much fun. But I had so much fun in the beginning of Book 1 of this book. And I'm really rambling on about this. I'm going to give this 2 plates of spicy potatoes out of 5 from the Inn of the Last Home. Initially, I am so excited about how this book picked up towards the end. And going into, I'm about 4 chapters into physical book, Volume 2. I'm 4 chapters into Volume 2 of the Dragonlance series, and I'm loving it. I am loving it where I'm at, but you just get lost in it, and I don't know that I could recommend this to an adult friend of mine. Bob.
All right, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. This was the first book that we chose to do for our podcast, and I think throughout all of this, listeners have pretty much come to realize that I'm not the Dungeons and Dragons guy here, and so I'm going to come at this review from an aspect of would I recommend this to friends who don't play Dungeons and Dragons and have no knowledge of it. I came at this book looking for it to be just a fantasy novel that I can enjoy. I enjoy fantasy, so I wasn't looking at it being a tie-in novel, like, to extend my experience from the gaming table or anything like that. So I came in cold, and I'd have to say, like Luke, very mixed bag for me. There are parts here that were really good. There are parts here that drive me absolutely crazy. But at the end of the day, I've got to look at it, can I recommend this book? I feel this book is an amateurish beginning, and that there's a lot of cool things, but like any kind of first attempt, and I read a lot of authors' first works. Every author has to have their first book that has its problems, and I think this one has a slew of them. But can I recommend it to people who aren't Dungeons and Dragons players? I would have to say no. I can't. I feel there is so much derivative material here. I myself couldn't find myself going more than 3 pages without seeing other movies or other books I'd already read. And I'm talking about books and movies from 70s and 80s, not because there's been another 25 years of material that I've read or watched. So I can't recommend the book to say my adult friends who are not playing Dungeons and Dragons. That being said, I do feel that if you are of that perfect age group, if you were 11, 12 to 14 when this came out and read it, you are going to love this book. It's going to sit with you. These characters are going to be like old friends to you, and hearing people rag on this book is really going to irritate you. I know I've got things that I watched as a child and I read as a child that I absolutely adore, with all of their faults and all of their horrible plot devices. And I get mad when people hate on them, right? I had a kid the other day tell me, I don't like E.T., and I could have just flipped my gourd, right? So I understand if some of you out there who love this book absolutely are flipping that somebody might not recommend this. But I did not grow up with this book. I'm coming to it as a late 30s adult, and there's just too many issues with it for me to recommend it. But I did love it enough, and I've developed a sick relationship to it, where I have gotten all kinds of books. I am buying more Dragonlance books than I ever thought I would. I'm reading backstories, and Verminard, reading his backstory. Man with two masks. It's crazy. So I do, in some weird ways, love this book as well. So I would give this 2 non-existent Dragonlances out of 5, is what I would give. So from here, we are going on to review the second book in the series. I'm hoping that it picks up. There is a lot of interesting, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in this one. I know I didn't give it a pass, but there was enough here that I love Kryn, I love the world, I love a lot of the ideas. I'm looking for, as we go forward, I'm going to spoil it from here. I think I've read a lot of books beyond this point. Things get much better. It gets really good.
And that is one of the things that I care enough by the end of the book. By the end of the book, to want to know what the loose ends are going to be, how those are going to be tied up. I care enough by the end of the book, by the end of this part of the story, to want to know it. Okay, I have to at least know what the rest of the story is. Regardless of if I had qualms with the writing, I had qualms with the plot, I had qualms with them not using D&D stuff correctly or effectively, I still want to know what goes on. I need to know the end of this. It's a little CDO on my part, but I need to know what's going to happen here.
CDO?
OCD's in the wrong order.
It's a joke.
And you know what? That joke aside, I'm right there with you guys. I mean, I kind of feel like I trudged through this book, but I found a diamond while I was doing it, and I'm hooked. I want to know what happens. Right. I'm reading book 2 right now. I'm loving it.
Right.
What are we gonna?
And I enjoyed this book throughout the entire thing. I mean, yeah, there were things I didn't, but I enjoyed it, and now I really want to continue reading it.
Right.
I am looking forward to reading book 2.
Right.
All of those things.
And like I said, I've been reading ancillary material, like the tales that came out back in the 80s. Even though I came out for the not recommend, in a weird way, I love this universe. It has a way of getting into you. The characters, although I have railed on how poorly some of them have been fleshed out, I find myself loving all these characters. Like
you know, we could sit here and we could talk about what we feel is going on, or we could just settle up our tab, and I can go start reading book 2 because I'm excited to. So why don't we get out of here?
Hey, let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
All right.
Hey, can we get our tab? Hey, what? No, you. Not her, you. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dungeons and Dweebs. There's even more adventuring to be had at our website, dungeonsanddweebs.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can email at us at dungeonsanddweebspodcast@gmail.com. You can also find Dungeons and Dweebs on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find all those links and more at dungeonsanddweebs.com. If you enjoyed our podcast, please help spread the word by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. The music for Dungeons and Dweebs is Final Fight by Royalty Free Kings and can be found at their website, royaltyfreekings.com. Dungeons and Dweebs is a Tim Gilbert Media production. Copyright 2017, all rights reserved. And no part of this show can be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the expressed written consent of Tim Gilbert Media Incorporated.